Welcome to the Reward Podcast with Tony Boutros. Today we have the pleasure of interviewing Michael Campbell, a Christian fitness influencer and coach who inspires others to grow, overcome obstacles, and relieve themselves. Just like myself, our guest Michael understands the profound link between mind and body, mental and physical health. Let's dive in to this insightful interview. Let's get it started. Michael, what ignited your journey to self-improvement and becoming a fitness influencer? And how did your faith play a role in it?
Well, first, thank you, Tony, for having me. I appreciate, the
Thanks for
invite.
being here.
So my journey of self-improvement has not really been linear to any sort of extent. I would say that it all honestly began consciously in my mind when I had to leave college because after I graduated, I went through a lot of different emotional kind of disturbances because I played baseball for around 15, 16 years of my life. So from the age of around 4 to like 18, 19. And I was able to get a D1 scholarship and play in the Bronx where I live. So it kind of ignited this spark in me when I had this altercation with my coach because he actually kicked me off of our college team because our beliefs were completely contradictory. And that is what honestly began my fitness journey to the extent that it's at now, where I would consider myself a natural bodybuilder. For this, I would train consistently, and my training led to improvements in baseball specifically. I would, have a coach, et cetera, and then I would try to, get better at hitting, throwing, all that stuff. But it never really translated into like my physique changing in the way that I wanted to. The style that I train now is directly related to, I think, that, because if it wasn't for that event, I would have been playing baseball for another year or 2 years. And I don't know if I would have gotten into fitness the way that I got into fitness, nor do I believe that faith would have been playing a role at all, because the reason I got into faith was because of what happened in that situation, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think that last part was super powerful. You came to God because of getting kicked off the baseball team. Like, I feel like God just puts us through these trials and tribulations, but we have to realize that, and it's cliche, but we have to realize that God puts us through these situations because he puts his strongest soldiers through the toughest situations to then get them to develop into who they're meant to be. So in a way, it's like, yeah, I lost the first 15, 16 years of my life, or 20 years of my life when I was playing baseball. And were you planning on going pro, or were you at that level? Or
I was training to go pro, absolutely.
okay,
But there was so many injuries that I was going through at the time that were, causing a lot of physical and mental setbacks. And I was supposed to be, one of our best players, but because I wasn't, that, in my opinion, led to a lot of resentment that my coach built up for me because he,
right.
gave me a lot of money for scholarships and such. And then I wasn't able to fulfill the role that he was looking for me to fulfill. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I think also you can always play the what if game too. Like you can feel like, what if I became Aaron Judge? But what if you played baseball and you got hit in the head with a bat and you never lived past 25 years old, right? And or instead you became a bodybuilder and a fitness influencer. You build your purpose around that. And you come to God because the grass, I feel like, will always be greener, but then you have to really play it out. Like, you said it's not linear because you've been, a lot of us come from being out of shape, whether that's being very, very skinny or being very, very fat. I was on the latter end of that, but you being an athlete where in shape, or you said not entirely, committed to fitness, but in shape overall, playing baseball and whatnot for most of your life. So it's really, it's all about perspective, all about perspective.
I agree. And one other thing I wanted to touch on is that how you stated that the grass is always greener. I think that the grass is always greener, not necessarily on the other side. I think it's wherever you water it, the grass is going to be greener. So like, if I continued playing baseball, I would have continued watering that grass for as long as, I was meant to water it. But I ended up becoming what I consider, fitness influencer, which is now something that I water every single second of the day because I have goals that I want to achieve, etc. So like, it all depends on what you're working for. and you will achieve those goals if you continue to water those plants. But if you have other things that you are watering that are going to deter you away from those goals, then just know that the grass ain't always greener. So
Right.
that's really important to recognize.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, I think the reason they say the grass is always greener on the other side is simply because when you're watering your grass, you're going to see other issues arise, right? So as an influencer, you might see, oh, this brand deal isn't paying me as much as if I were to go play baseball and get an MLB contract, right? So there's always just going to be struggles that you have to overcome. But I definitely see what you're saying with the, it's greener where you water it, because that's where you're putting the time and effort and work into. So it's going to get better and better and better over time. But you have to be willing to also sacrifice sort of the now for the long term, for the later, for the future, right?
100%.
Can you share a moment when you face a significant setback in your career or personal life, and how did you bounce back from it?
So I haven't really been doing this fitness stuff for a long time, so I won't touch on the career. I'll go more personal life. And what I just told you in relation to what happened to me with my baseball career, it in and of itself was related to my personal life. So I say baseball career, but it's contradictory. It was my personal life. So like that is something that definitely caused a setback, but I just kind of touched on that. So I'm going to go towards a different topic, which is in relation to when I first had, a girlfriend and I got my heart broken. Like that was a very, very challenging time for me because I didn't understand like what it was like to feel like true like mourning, because I've never experienced any sort of death in my family. And I would say that it's more of like a spiritual death because obviously the person is still alive, but you lose an identity, a part of you that you kind of attached onto for so long. And that whole experience started to propel me in the direction towards God. And that is kind of what led to me, really catapulting into my success after I got thrown off the team by my coach, because the way the events played on was I got my heart broken. And then 6 months later, after I started like diving into, religion, spirituality, etc., that's when I got kicked off the team. And I started, really getting into it because I'm like, all right, like this is unbelievable. Like something's going on. Like I'm meant to like really discover something about myself.
Right.
And when I realized, what is out there, like what is beyond me, what is in the, the metaphysical realm, I was able to understand that like the things that are happening to me that seem really challenging right now aren't as challenging as other people are perhaps perceiving the same things, or there are people that are perceiving what I'm like going through as very easy. So that there's different perspectives to take down a certain challenge that you're facing. So it made me wonder, like, why am I struggling to go through heartbreak? Why are people able to just bounce back within a couple of days, a couple of weeks? So I had to do a lot of self-reflection, and it led me down the path of God, which I'm forever grateful for. But that's just a little brief run through. It's profound though.
Right. Before I even say anything to that, I want to just thank you for being open with your mental health, because I think as a man, there's just a stigma that's like mental health doesn't exist. And the truth is, I mean, I think it's literally one man per day, I think, per second, something crazy. It was with the suicide rate of men. It's truly heartbreaking. I mean, I used to struggle really badly with depression and anxiety, and like the fact that no one even talks about it is heartbreaking. So just being open to talking about your journey, your heartbreak, and coming to God, and I think it's truly powerful. And I can see why you've been blowing up these past few months on social media. I remember when we first spoke, I think you were at like 15K on Instagram, and now you're at 50 within a few months. So, just being genuine has gotten you this far. And I think if you stick with that path, it's gonna pay you back tenfold. So it's truly inspiring to see. But you were talking about also how you kind of felt embarrassed, per se, that you weren't able to deal with the stress as well as you believed you should have been able to. You weren't able to process the heartbreak and whatnot, where you see all these other people processing all this stress. And I think one, obviously, another cliche is comparison is a thief of joy, but I think also comparison will be the thief of anything. Like, I mean, you look at someone who is way past your level, and whether it's in mental health or in physical health or in business or whatever it is, and then you compare yourself to them, it's gonna just make you feel like shit, even if it's just about how they can handle their stress, because they've gone through more stress, so therefore their stress tolerance is much higher. Whereas same thing in business, someone's done business for 10 years, they're gonna be better than a businessman their first year, their first month, their first 6 months, whatever, right? So it's the same thing, just on a different measurement scale.
Yeah.
But as a Christian influencer, do you find any unique Christian fitness influencer? Sorry, do you find any unique intersections between your faith and your fitness philosophy that you'd like to share?
Yeah. So faith and fitness coincide depending on the individual, because if you really think about it, to develop any sort of physique, you have to have some sort of blind faith in the actions you take every single day. Because you're not seeing change, right? You're not like waking up the next day and you're like, holy shit, like my biceps is true. The whole end, like you can't tangibly see it. Like it takes like months and months and months and years on end to be like, wow, like look at that picture that I took 2 years ago versus where I'm at now. Like I had no idea, because you're just so engulfed in the process that you don't even recognize how far you've come. So like they're a staple. They correlate, they coincide, you know, they complement one another. Faith and fitness, for me specifically, absolutely
Right.
are something that I'm basing my entire morality on, because in order to achieve the things I want to achieve, there are plenty of times where if I have no faith in getting to where I want to go, like I'm just not going to get there. So there will come a point where my willpower will just, because willpower is finite. You can only have so much willpower before you just decide to give up. Your brain can only take so much. Your psyche can only take so many hits before there comes a point where it's literally overwhelming to process any further damage, because things are extremely traumatic, and people don't give themselves enough credit, nor this space to forgive themselves for messing up in the first place. So having faith, being grounded in God or whatever you believe in, whether it's, extraterrestrial, like universal beings,
Right.
whatever it is, being based in that allows you to, go through times of turbulence and get through it without losing yourself completely.
Right. Yeah. I think that's 100% true. Faith in progress. Like, you go into a gym, whether, let's say for me, when I started, 60 pounds, more than that, but way overweight, you're not going to lose 60 pounds in a day. But can you lose 60 pounds in 6 months? Yeah, you can. But 6 months, when you first start on your first day, on your first rep, on your first set, it feels so far away. So just having that faith in progress, and even later in your journey, like where you're at now, being a few years into your fitness journey, like the comparison of everyone that you see online in the fitness world, I mean, you you can literally go to your phone and see the IFBB pros, C-Bomb, and all the great bodybuilders of all time. And it's easy, especially as an influencer, to compare yourself to them, because it's like, why would someone listen to me when I can go and take advice from this person who looks way larger, way bigger, way better than I do? So it's just that faith and progress that you will get there. And also, obviously, there's steroids and whatnot involved in fitness. But I definitely agree that, you really have to place an emphasis on the patience aspect of fitness, because it's not going to happen overnight. And that's with anything. That's with anything great. Anything great takes time.
Yeah, it's a relation to business. It's a relation to relationships you build with people. It's absolutely, it goes into every realm of your life, 100%.
I am not the largest fan of this question, because I feel like a lot of the morning routines and that kind of stuff, like millionaire morning routine, I feel like that's bullshit. But do you have any non-negotiable habits or routines in your daily life that contribute to your success and well-being?
Yeah, I definitely, I would say I have a different perspective on this than a lot of people, because I don't have non-negotiables. I genuinely, all right, let me start over. So I wake up each day, and depending on what time I wake up, because of what time I went to bed, the first thing I have to do is drink something because like I'm dehydrated completely from the sleep. So like I guess you can consider that a non-negotiable, but honestly, the majority of people wake up and they'll drink some water. Like that's not profound. It's not like rocket science. So like I'll do that, but there are days where like I feel it's more necessary to perhaps do some breath work in the morning. It'll be important to go outside and do some grounding. Like I like to do that, get my feet in the grass, because when I can energetically charge myself from connecting with the earth, it kind of fuels me and allows me to like get a clear mind so I can set my intentions for the day. I like to go on morning walks around like 10 minutes. I usually just walk around the sector where I live for a little bit of time. And then I tend to do at least a 2 to 3 hour intermittent fast. And these aren't non-negotiables. These are just tendencies of what I lean towards and what I favor. But I'm not like, if I don't do it, my entire day is not ruined. I don't allow myself to be put in that position mentally where like I'm stuck. Because I think that's where people can go wrong. Like having non-negotiables,
Right.
it can be good, but what if you don't do it that day? Your entire day's ruined. How can you possibly move through the rest of the day if you didn't, do your reading, do your meditation? Like, how can you move, right? It's very challenging, I think, to overcome for a lot of people.
Right. Yeah, and that's why I brought that up. That before I even asked that, I don't really like that. I don't like the idea of, oh, you have to do these 10 things in the morning, or you're gonna have a shitty day. Like, no, fuck that. You can get over yourself and get what you need to get done. But you mentioned that you do breathing and breath work and grounding on some days, but not every day. Do you have particular days that you do it on, whether it's a weekday or is it a day after a day that's maybe more stressful for you, or when and where do you do those usually?
Yeah. Okay. So I tend to do the grounding and breath work together if I do it. So I would go outside on days where I know that it's like a big day. Like I might not necessarily be able to define what the big day is, but like sometimes it's intuitive where like I emotionally am just like, okay, something is telling me to just do this today, and I just listen to it. I feel like I have a very good understanding of like what my intuition is telling me. And there are other days where I actually understand that I have some stressful things to take care of in the more tangible realm, like where like I have like checklists to get done. Like I want to go outside and make sure that I get some good sun today, connect with the earth, like connect with my inner self so that I can be clear in the mind. Because if I'm not clear in the mind, I won't be able to make the proper decisions to execute any of those things. So that would be a more circumstantial based thing and when I tend to do those things. So it really does depend on like what I have to tackle that day specifically.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So if you have a lighter day, then it's like, I'll just go on my walk. I'll get my water or my drink. You said drink something daily. Is it water or is it? Do you drink?
Yeah, I only drink water. I literally haven't consumed soda, like lemon, like nothing. Like I only drink water. Water and tea. That's it.
Okay, I was curious about that. Yeah. So if it's a lighter day, you'll just drink the water, get a quick walk in, and do maybe a 2-3 hour fast, like you mentioned. But if not, if you need to, if you have a longer task list for the day, then might as well get yourself grounded and make sure you're performing at the peak you can. That
Yeah,
best you can.
it doesn't necessarily mean like lengthy tasks. It more means like strenuous, like how challenging I perceive the task list to be. Like if I'm like, all right, like this is going to be a lot today, and like I need to make sure that I'm really here, focused on like each task individually, and that's when I will tend to do all those things I just said. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So in that case, how do you personally measure success, both in your fitness journey and in your role as a coach, as well as an influencer? Because I can see, again, how that could be comparison.
Yeah. So success is a challenging thing that I struggle with in terms of like measuring it based on results some days versus actual output. Well, not output, input, because output would be results. Right. So whenever I tend to measure success on the result-based side, it's kind of like you lose that accountability aspect of things. Because now it's like I'm putting perhaps a video out there that I'm really looking forward to doing well, and I'll see it perform poorly, and I'll, have my entire day like kind of drag because I'm like dwelling on that. But if I put a video out there that I'm basing my success off of how much I put into it and how well thought out it was, then it won't matter necessarily, because my perspective towards success has now pivoted for that day. And it does change time to time. There's some days and weeks where you can kind of flow and just understand that like the law of attraction does play into effect to a lot of these things. If you're measuring your success simply on output and like what you're receiving back for what you're putting in, then you have to realize that it's not directly correlated, because sometimes it takes so many failed attempts to get that one success.
Right.
Where like if you're measuring everything on the output, you won't even get to that point of that one success, because you'll give it. You would have given up by 100%. And in terms of like my fitness journey, my role as a coach, fitness and like actually going to the gym and like executing things for success, like I don't actually give a crap. I really don't. I just simply love going to the gym. Like I'm absolutely addicted to getting in the gym. Like when I'm off, like today I have an off day, and like I'm like kind of like itching. Like I want to go to the gym. I know that it's gonna be better off when I do get back in the gym for my overall growth moving forward in order to achieve the physique I want to achieve. And then as a coach, it's different because it's not now about you, it's about the other people, right? The clients that you're working with, etc. So like measuring success for them is all based on the circumstance and the goals that they want to achieve. And if they have certain things that they're going through mentally that is kind of obstructing them and, blocking what they need to see in order to recognize kind of what I just stated, how like measuring success based on how you look and the output of what you're putting into things, it tends to lead you to failure.
Right.
I would say like 95% of the time, because you're not always going to get the results you want from what you put in. And that is just that's the red pill of life. Like that is very, very challenging to accept for most people, because everybody wants some sort of congruence in what they put in versus what they get out. If I put in X amount, I want X amount back. So like when you put in X amount and you don't get it back, that is very traumatic to the psyche, because you feel like you're being like let down to a certain extent, or you don't feel worthy. Like there's a lot of self-doubt that can come into that. So like measuring success simply on what you put in and knowing that when you hit the pillow at the end of the night, you put in as much as you possibly can, is most likely the most optimal way to not necessarily measure success, but to sustain consistent effort towards achieving success over a longer duration of time.
Yeah. I think another reason, especially in fitness, that the input is what you should be focusing on rather than the output is simply because, especially as a beginner, like if you're coaching a client who's never seen the inside of a gym, what is more easier for them to do? Is it easier and does it feel more fun in the moment to sit down and to watch Netflix and to eat pizza, or does it feel better to eat healthy and go to the gym? Probably feels better to watch Netflix and eat pizza. Right. So, but then you're focusing on the output, because you think that by one day of going to the gym and eating healthy, you're not going to get any output. And by the way, unfortunately, you're right, because that's just how the gym works. You need to put in that time. You need to be patient, as we said. So just realizing, one, the patience aspect of it, and realizing that it will be more worth it, of course, but it will also take more time and you won't get the instant gratification. So you really just need to wait for the delayed gratification. As far as what you said for fitness, so you don't give a crap about fitness or your fitness goals per se, just because you're addicted. I feel like it's funny because you said today's a rest day, and it's funny because when you're beginning, you need to be so disciplined to go to the gym 4 or 5, 3 days a week. But when you get to a higher level of fitness and you truly love the gym, it's like, dude, I have to be disciplined to not go to the gym. It's crazy. So then you said also with the coaching that you base it off of their circumstances and their goals that they want to achieve, which I think is really great, because there's so many coaches out there that are just like, dude, I want to achieve X amount of money, but they're not even thinking about what impact they're going to make on the people that they're coaching. It's like, they're just a paycheck to me. I don't care if they actually transform their lives. I don't care if they actually make a difference. I don't care if they actually make an impact on their, like, pay me my money and we're good. But, so just putting the client first is the way to go, and it's the way to truly be successful without, sacrificing your morals, especially as a Christian.
100%, man. 100%. I've touched on everything for sure.
Next question. You emphasize the importance of managing stress and maintaining mental health. Could you share some strategies that have worked well for you? We've touched on grounding. We've touched on breath work. Is there anything else that you've really seen to work for you very well, or is it mostly the breath work and grounding in the wall?
Anything for maintaining my mental health, you said?
Correct. Yeah.
It's like I said, it's kind of challenging to like articulate it in terms of like making it tangible for people to comprehend, because a lot of it for me tends to be intuitive. Like I really do lean more towards that like what I really feel like is necessary. And I'm not saying that I react emotionally to things. I'm saying that like taking time out of your day to connect with the part of you that kind of like has that certainty and like knowingness without being able to like tangibly state it with your words. It's like this like disconnect between like the mind and the soul. Like being able to touch deeper into your soul can like allow you to gain answers and clarity on things that you might not have been able to gain if you didn't like take that time. So for me, it really comes down to like understanding the like that extra 20 to an hour that I'm going to spend on, the managing and maintaining like stress levels, and like also certain techniques that kind of help grow those skills to make myself better at, breath work and like understanding different techniques, doing research, whatever it may be at that day. That, I guess, to me is like the most tangible way to put it. But like I said, a lot of it is very intangible.
Right. I think that's super important too, is just being able to accept and embrace that hour of that you're dedicating towards your stress and towards your mental health. Because I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs, creators, and just people that are goal driven, they're like, I cannot do anything that is not directly related to me reaching my goal. But you have to realize that you're gonna, one, just simply be less productive when you're not managing your stress, when you're not managing your mental health. But two, like, dude, you're going to burn out. You're gonna burn out, plain and simple, if you're not managing your stress. Because how long do you think you can neglect your stress and your mental health for? It's not gonna help for you. And that's something I've experienced firsthand too. I can't even put it into words. I don't even know how I would begin to describe the importance of mental health. But I can say for certain, mental health is 100 times more important than physical health. However, I think physical health is a gateway to mental health, and I don't think you can have mental health without physical health. So I'm curious if you have the same train of thought where you place more emphasis on mental health rather than physical health, which is not very common, and especially as a man.
Yeah, I would agree to a certain extent. I think they're all like kind of symbiotically related. Like you have to kind of have one without the other, like yin yang type of logic. Right. Like if one is imbalanced, the other will be imbalanced as long as you give it the attention it needs. But some part of me definitely leans more towards the mind controls the body. Like how do you move if the mind don't tell it to move? You know what I mean? You're not going to the gym unless you convince your mind that it's the right thing to do. You know what I mean? So right. That definitely is something that I lean more towards. And I think that's what most people should, because if you're always in your head, you're always thinking, you're always talking to yourself, you spend the most time with yourself. So why not control your mind and make sure that you understand that is what moves every other part of your body.
Right. Yeah. They say you're the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time around, but the one person you spend the most time around, like you said, is yourself. So being able to control your mind and your mentality, your mindset, and what you're thinking throughout the day, rather than letting yourself get distracted with things that are detracting from your life, from your value, enormous value. You said you need to have a mixture of both, and I 100% agree. I went through intensive outcare therapy, and even landed myself in inpatient therapy once for about a week growing up. And I can tell you, did it help in the moment? Maybe, but doesn't matter without action. Talking your feelings out, whatever, doesn't matter. So you me again, a mixture of both. And for me, what truly helped my mental health improve was getting into the gym, was getting my physical health in shape, and in turn my mental health. And both of them now are like the yin and yang, like you mentioned. So it's a mixture of both. Yeah, 100%. Looking back at your journey, what's one piece of advice you wish you had received when you were just starting, especially given you were just starting when with some tough times, heartbreak, and getting kicked off a baseball team?
Yeah, it would definitely be like having humility towards myself and understanding that, as much as this might contradict like my accountability morality that I believe, or I probably believe in morality. Like, if people constantly blame themselves for things that go wrong, but they give they accredit higher beings to things that like go well, then like you're kind of not understanding the concept of the yin and yang in regards to like the God that's going to bless you with certain things, and you give appreciation to that. Do you believe in that? But if you do believe in that, then there's a contrary to that good. There's an evil, right? So there are things that going to like chirp at you, that are going to talk to you, that are going to lead you down certain paths that you might not see at that moment. That's going to lead you to a specific consequence, quote unquote. But like looking back, if I had the understanding of what I have now, in terms of like just being more graceful to myself and having that humility and like being okay to forgive myself, because like I would hold resentment on how I took action on certain things and how people treated me, and that is what kind of stagnated my self growth, and that made me very susceptible to behavioral traits that were things that I look at now that kind of disgust me about how I used to be. And it's not to say that anyone who currently behaves in a way that is malicious towards themselves is like looked down upon. It's more so to understand that like you have to bring awareness to the root of all these problems, that sometimes it's not your fault, and that it's okay to forgive X individual or yourself. It really just comes down to that. And if I understood that, that definitely would have changed the game for me, and I think I would have propelled into self-growth, self-improvement a lot faster.
Right. I think that also is sort of related to the input output. Like if there's a negative outcome or a negative output, and you genuinely put in a positive input, but still there's a negative output, but it's because of someone else. It's easy to blame ourselves for that. Like, what did I do wrong? What mistake did I make that made this output happen? But then we have to realize that we can control ourselves, but we can't control everyone. So the output, if it depends on someone else, no matter what we do, we might not get our expected or our desirable outcome. So just like you said, having that self-love and self-confidence, it's difficult. It's difficult because you want to take accountability for your mistakes, but we can oftentimes take accountability for things that maybe we made a mistake, but in reality, maybe it just didn't happen. With like you said, a heartbreak. Maybe I don't know. She met Tom Holland. Maybe she met some other guy or whatever. And that's just the way life goes. But I think you brought up God as well. Just being able to kind of give God credit for the positive the impacts that he makes on your life, and also being able to accept that God is going to give you these trials and tribulations. Correct?
So like, yeah, I kind of want to just extend my statement about that. What I mean by that is that when people give credit to God for their success, they don't give credit to the devil for their failures. You know what I mean? Like, that's when it's like you're not understanding the full picture. I think that's what people can get wrong. Because why are you not accrediting yourself for your success then? You're accrediting yourself for your failures? That doesn't make any sense. Like, it's not very logical if you think of it in that regards, in terms of the yin and yang. But I think that people believe in the good, but they don't want to believe in evil because it's a little more like scary to look at, which I would understand and I can resonate with, because that was me at a certain point. Understanding, like I said, what I know now, having the humility and the ability to stay humble about both perspectives can lead you to making that perspective change when it's the time. that needs to be happy.
Right. Yeah. I think it is, like you said, it's much, you have to be more vulnerable to be able to accept that, yeah, this fuck up was literally a message from the devil. Like, and it's scary to accept that and to really be like, dude, I need to get closer with God. I need to get closer with God, period, point blank, because the devil is giving me temptation and they're giving me these things that might even make me feel good in the moment. But in reality and in the long term, like, they're not healthy for me. And I know that deep down, but instead of just lowering your self-confidence, it needs to raise your confidence in God and improve your relationship with God. So I definitely, I'm glad you clarified that as well, because I wasn't exactly sure what you were saying in the beginning when you first brought that up. Is there a particular resource, whether it's a book, tool, or practice that has significantly impacted your journey and mindset?
Not necessarily. Like, it really comes down to what we were saying before about like routine. Each day is different for me.
Hmm.
Each day is similar but different. There are some things that I have to get done that day, and that is what's similar. But what's different is those things that have to get done, and they all require a different resource. That there's not one particular thing that I can accredit all my success to in terms of like, what my journey has been based upon in terms of self growth. But
Right.
my mindset, like, it really comes down to staying based in humility, and I guess that would be like the main thing I would say about that is understanding. Sometimes it's your fault, sometimes it's not. You gotta get really, really fucking aware of knowing the difference. Otherwise, you're gonna get down a really sticky path because you're not gonna understand that there are plenty of times where things happen to you that you really want to take accountability for, but you can't. It's out of your
Right.
control. It's like understanding what's in your control, and if it is, take every possible action, exhaust every possible resource to get that thing solved or achieved, whatever situation it may be. And then on the contrary, if something out of your control, you have to be very sure that it is out of your control. And if you can sleep at night understanding that there are things not in your control, that's going to lead you to have peace so that you can make decisions on things you can't control. Because it gets very foggy when there's things you can't control and you're trying to control them, but then you're not controlling the things that you can't control. So then both of them just get fucked up.
Right. Given your emphasis on focusing on the input and while remaining, humble and keeping, yeah, remaining humble, in focusing on God willing decisions. How do you make difficult decisions, and how do you approach and make these tough choices, given that you might not be in control of the outcome every single time?
Yeah, it all goes back to blind faith, genuinely. Like, there is so many times where, like, your ego it's pulling you. It's like telling you, like, you can control it, like, find a way, find a way, find a way. But then you're basically like, you're watering a dead plant at that point. And that's what I
Right.
was talking about earlier with, like, wherever water, that's where the grass is going to be greener. So be sure to water the plants that you understand very well that's what it grows into. If you're watering a tree or like a seed that's going to grow into an apple tree, then you better be sure that you want an apple tree and not an orange tree or whatever. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
just like, be aware of what you're watering, and that it has a consequence, because there's times you can water a bad relationship with a woman that 3 years down the road is going to lead you to a really bad heartbreak because you were super unaware and ignorant to the false light and like the temptation of like lust and like all these very sinful emotions that can come with that.
Right. So choosing what grass to water, but also realizing that you may make the wrong decision, but then having to accept that and not continuing to water it, because then, like you said, you're watering a dead plant. So just being faithful in your decision and kind of dropping the ultimate decision over to God and letting Him kind of dictate how you make your decisions, rather than making them on an impulse, which can then lead to the devil, making a large portion of that decision for you.
Yeah, I would say the best way to go about it, like internally, is understanding that, like, because everybody gets it. Like, Truly, it's just like hard for people to articulate it. Like when you feel good about making a decision, make the decision. If you have some sort of lack of clarity, then understand that there are things you can do to gain clarity. Like there's a piece of information you're missing, and when you gain it, then you'll get that good feeling that I just stated to make the decision that you have to make. So it's like just operate in that realm. If you have something that is confusing you, gain the clarity and don't make any sort of decision until you gain the clarity.
Right.
Like it's very simple. I think it's a very simple process people can follow. I know there's a lot more internal work that goes into it, but if you keep it simple like that, then you can now have that be the groundwork that you build off.
One of the recurring things I'm hearing from you is living and making decisions with intention. You emphasize on your page, nothing good happens by accident. Can you dive into how intentionality has shaped your journey, and have you always been intentional, or did that start when you go into spirituality and got kicked off the team?
Yeah, intentionality is something I credit a lot of my success to, because if I wake up every day and hope things happen by accident, like I'm living in this false paradigm in my mind. It's a complete fallacy, which is going to lead me down a path that, like I said, I might believe in my mind is going to get me to where I want to go, because I'm not actually being intentional about it. I'm not making decisions based on whether it's like scientific data, like very tangible things. And then on top of that, going beyond that layer and understanding the yin and yang of tangible versus intangible, you need the contrast, like the physical realm versus the meta realm. Like you need both, and then when you can coincide those together, it can lead you to make the proper intentional decision. And sometimes you're not going to be able to make the right intentional decision. You know what I'm saying? Like you might make something that's intentional. You might water some plants that you think like you're like, yeah, that's what I want to water, but then turns out later that it grew into something you didn't. You're like, oh shit, like that's not what I expected. So like it just depends on how much information do you have about X situation? How clear are you actually about it? And if you actually are, and it's meant to be, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. And if it doesn't happen now, it's gonna happen at a different point, because God wasn't ready to give you what you wanted, type of thing. Like this, it all goes back to faith. You know what I mean? Like you have blind faith when you fail, and you can easily spin those negative into positives, just like how I just spun that.
Right. So the three traits, well, I guess the two traits that I'm hearing the most from you: humility, faith, and, well, I guess there is a third, intention. So these traits have developed you into really the man that you have become now, and the man that you're developing into. I'm curious if you have had any mentors, or if you place an emphasis on having a mentor in life, or if even maybe you consider just Jesus and God and the church as your mentor.
I definitely have. I would say both. It's not one or the other. There are times where I guess it makes more sense to have a more like tangible mentor, someone who's actual human being, like somebody that I can like go speak to, or whether it's somebody I look up to, like I have an older brother who I can go to for assistance, like whether it's like a close friend, whether it's watching some sort of motivational speaker, influencer on YouTube, on social media that like I look up to, that I really want to kind of base certain characteristics that they have on my own life, like kind of like take them, extract them, and be like, yeah, I want to apply that to myself, so let me kind of study them a little bit more. But then on the contrary, there are times where that doesn't make any sense, because I don't necessarily have that clarity of like that person's gonna solve it, because I feel a little bit more like kind of distraught and like traumatized based on X situation internally, and my psyche is kind of just like pulling me towards God more so. So it just, like I said, it depends on what intuitively makes the most sense, and that's usually where I will go.
I think the thing is too, it's really about the specificity. I can't even pronounce that. How specific what you're achieving to do is, right? So if you want to achieve 1 million followers on Instagram, that's a very specific goal. So you can go to someone who's accomplished that. But if you want to achieve a holistic life, then you don't want to just copy the exact framework that someone else has done. For example, I know a friend of mine who's also a coach, and his mentor is very, very successful, but he was in jail he was in prison for 10 years. So yeah, obviously you can replicate from his success, but you don't want to be in jail for 10 years. You don't want to replicate that part, right? So just if it's a large part of your life, then yeah, that's probably going to be more of a God, and also taking research from different people rather than one specific person, because no one's perfect. But if it's a specific goal, then I think that is where a mentor can come in and truly.
I agree. To add on, I believe that it's really important to extract the traits that you admire in different individuals, and kind of you can do that and have that form based on who you become, right? So like if you like a specific trait that someone withholds, and you can extract that from them and like understand like why they do it so well, and then be like, okay, I admire that. Let me start applying some of the things they do. But let's say I don't like X thing they do, and let me not want to apply that. So let me find someone who does that thing that I'm looking for, and then let me get that from this different person. You know what I mean? So you can go from person here, person here, person here, person here, and just extract a bunch of different traits from them, and then you can have that form your identity. Like that's totally fine in my opinion, 100%.
I think I read something the other day specific about like book writing, and they said if you copy from one person, it's plagiarism, but if you copy from various people, it's research. So, you know, if you don't want to plagiarize someone else's life, because again, you don't want to go to prison for 10 years. You don't want to have the negative parts in your life. And obviously, you're still going to have negative parts in your life because, again, no one's perfect. You're not Jesus, but if you can live by Jesus for the most part, but then take what they've achieved that you also want to achieve, then you're set for success. As someone deeply involved in fitness and personal development, what emerging trends or technologies do you believe will shape your field over the next 5 years? This can be anything from mental health as a whole, or artificial intelligence, or whatever you think will shape your field.
Yeah, definitely AI has a good factor and role in that, but I would say it has to do. I would accredit it to personability. People who are able to be extremely personable with their audiences and with people that they work with, whether it's clients, any sort of relationship you're trying to build, I think that is going to be like what separates you. Because like most people can copy and plagiarize another individual's identity on the internet and lack that personability. But if you find your own way to incorporate who you are as an individual, that's exactly what people are going to like admire about you, because everybody's fake. You know what I mean? Like everybody is putting on a facade, and
Right.
the more you can understand that, and then come up with a game plan around what are your strengths? What are you good at? How can I build a really good foundation, or if we're talking about fitness and personal development, around those strengths, that people can look up to me if that's what you're looking to do. And then if it's not that, and it's just so that you can achieve what you want to achieve, then how can you build a good foundation around those strengths and then address your weaknesses when it's time?
Right. I am. I agree. I'm gonna say the reason actually that I create the podcast, but also more talking videos, is because I do want to be personable with my audience. Though it's very very small, especially compared to yours right now. I think with what you do, you have found a way to be personable with it, especially with your broadcast channel now, where you can get closer to your audience. But I feel like there's just with the edit style of fitness, it's awesome for growth. I think it has good retention and click through rate and all the statistics. It's awesome, shares and whatnot. But I think to be truly closer with your audience, at least my belief is that talking to them and sharing your journey, your message with them is the most powerful thing you can do. For example, like for me, I am creating more content now on mental health, because again, I think that's an underserved part of health. I don't think as many men think there's really something that they can do about mental health. But the truth is that it needs to be served. It needs to be a safe place for men, even though there's a stigma around it. But I definitely agree that being personable with your audience is 100% the way to go. One question I always like to ask everyone is in your opinion, and we've gone over 3 of yours, but what is the most crucial trait the individual should cultivate to achieve success in the realm of health and personal growth?
Yeah, humility, man. It just goes back to that. I don't think people necessarily understand like what that word, how significant like having humility really is for an individual's like health. Like,
Right.
you can like just stop being so hard on yourself. And like the reason I can even say this because I was so hard on myself. Like I understand both sides of the spectrum. Like I've already had the contrast in my heart and my mind, and every part of me understands what it's like to be extremely harsh and just give myself no wiggle room to be like, it wasn't my fault here, versus the contrary where you do nothing but be the victim and you take no accountability, right? So I understand that it's a spectrum where people fall somewhere on that line, but it's really important to have a balance of both. Understand that there are times where it's not your fault and there are times where it is your fault. And if people can really develop that as a trait, it's going to cultivate success, mainly because it will allow you to stay consistent. If you can stay consistent, you will win. It's only a matter of time. This is like a saying I live by every single day. It's only a matter of time before you hit your goals, right? Like if you were to fast forward right now from today's date into a year from now, and you were to hypothetically be able to consistently do everything in your mind, you can probably predict where you're going to be. So why can't you just live on that? In order to do that, you have to have some sort of humility because you're going to fuck up along the way. You're going to have trials, tribulations, because it's who you become on the process, during the process. That's what makes you hit your goals, right? You never are going to hit your goals unless you become the person that God has intended you to become. It's physically impossible. And that's the thing that most people forget and might not even understand to begin with. Health and personal growth is all based upon your ability to get hit hard as fuck by life and get up. And I understand that's a cliche by Rocky, but like, it's true. How hard can you get hit and get up? Like, do you understand that like, if you don't die from it, you are getting stronger to a certain extent from it. You really are. Like, it's building your character. It's developing you into a more well-rounded, experienced-based individual.
Dude, I was a part of the audience for that one. That just internalized with me so much. Like, first of all, for anyone watching this from Michael's page, like, go get him as a coach because this man is spewing powerful information. But dude, that's one of the issues that I've had. You said if you are consistent, you will win. For me, it's that minimum of time delay. You know, wanting to achieve so much, but then being here and just knowing that it's all that you're waiting for is the time delay. You just have to keep doing what you're already doing. You have to keep making the podcast. You have to keep creating content. You have to keep making progress, and you'll get to your goals. But I think it's, again, it goes back to the comparison is a thief of joy. Because for me, I am always looking at people like business mentors that I'd like to look up to on podcasts and whatnot. So, you know, N. Milet and Alex Hermosi and people that have achieved, that are deca millionaires. But I'm 20 years old, so I'm not there yet. You know, even though I know for a fact I will get there, you have to keep being consistent until you do. And then, by the way, you have to keep being consistent after you do so you can keep making progress. But yeah, if you are consistent, you will win, period. So I think there's a song too. You said, if you don't die, you're getting strong. I think I wonder if you
understand Kelly Clarkson song or
something like that. I can't remember. Whatever doesn't kill you makes
makes you strong.
Yeah, I have it in my head now. All right. Some critics argue that the fitness industry promotes unrealistic body standards. What's your take on this, and how do you address these concerns in your work?
Yeah, the comparison is the thief of joy, right? You said it thousands of times in this podcast. I mean, dude, like, yes, the fitness industry promotes unrealistic body standards because majority of people are roiding, and that's very hard for people to accept, which is, it's whatever, man. Like, you do you. Like, if you want to, take steroids, then that's up to you. That's not my, life. That's not what I choose to do. But to compare yourself to people like that is extremely, it's stupid. It's ignorant. It's not understanding that you should compare yourself to people you want to be. Also, people who are on the same playing field as you. They're playing a different game than you. So why are you comparing yourself to them? Like it's like being a like in T-ball and being like, I want to be Aaron Judge. It's like it makes
Right.
no sense. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So like compare yourself to the people that are in your league and then be like, okay, this guy's at the top of my league and he's actually in my league. So let me understand what he did to get there. And then I think that creates a lot more of a healthy environment, you know, to talk about that type of stuff. Because now your standards of the body are no longer unrealistic. Because now you see that if you did X amount through X amount of time, then you will achieve your body goals and your physique goals.
But in your fitness, how do you recommend that people can compare themselves to people that are in your league? Because even if, you know, for example, there is someone that's natural, let's say Alex Eubank, who knows if he's actually natural or not, but let's say Alex Eubank, but he has crazy genetics. So is he still in your league, or is that out of your league? Is that a higher league because of his genetics?
Well, that's where I think faith comes into play once again, because, right, it doesn't really matter. You're not going to, unless you talk to him, you're not going to know. And even if you do talk to him, you're going to be able to dissect his genetics and understand him. Like, he doesn't even know. He's just somebody who achieved that. Like, it's like, you know, you don't know. So that's where blind faith comes into play. And that's, you know, what has led me to understand that there are people that you can strive to be like, but it will just honestly push you to be the best version of yourself. You know what I mean? It doesn't hurt. There's no downside to that, as long as you're not comparing yourself, being like, well, like, I'm not him yet, but are you better than you were yesterday or like a month ago or a year ago? Like, that's what you should compare yourself to, not other people. Compare yourself to yourself. That makes the most sense logically, and I think it creates the most optimal environment to promote personal growth internally and externally.
Right.
Now you're no longer basing your success on other individuals. You're basing your success on who you used to be, and you understand who you used to be more than anyone, right? You understand that overweight individual or that anorexic, that skinny individual. You understand what they were like, and now you're not like them. So you should be proud of yourself for how far you've come, and not compare yourself to the guy who's on roids or the guy who's blessed with, you know, genes from God. So like, yeah, they all coincide, but having blind faith that, like, yeah, you have your idols, have people you look up to. Don't compare yourself to them. Just admire them for their work and be humble about it. Expect humility. Have some sort of graceful attitude towards it. That you're not destroying your psyche and your mental plane because someone has a better physique than you. Like, no one cares. Who gives a shit? If you believe that, then you're never even going to achieve your best self. So what good does it do? Always do things that are going to serve you and make you a better person. 100%.
First of all, you need to start making more talking content, because I think you make mostly edits, as we mentioned earlier. You're spewing some motivation right now, but yeah, comparing yourself to yourself, not others. Like, it's, you know, if you're comparing yourself to others, you can only go so far up, or you can go up forever, and you're never gonna be happy because you're never gonna achieve 100% of what they do. Especially if you don't want to get on roids. Like, if you just want to stay natural, you're never going to look like Noel Diesel. You're never going to look like Sebum. You're never going to look like any of these pro body. You're never going to look like Ronnie Coleman, you know. But can you look like someone who looks better than the person you were yesterday or the day before or last week or last month or last year? You absolutely fucking can. So compare yourself to people that, compare yourself to who you were a month ago, 6 months ago, a year ago. But the issue with that also is you then don't know what you're looking forward to. And I guess then you can say it's faith. You know, everyone, obviously, they want abs. So it's faith that I will one day have abs, but you don't have it upper, you don't have a forward thing to look forward to. You're getting further away from this person who was in the past. Right. So what do you say to that?
Yeah. As far away as you get from your past self, of course, the closer you get to the person you want to become. But that is kind of where, like, it's like a formula, honestly. It's like a formula that you have to, like, customize to your own situation and understand that there are people that you can look up to because you want to look like that individual, perhaps, or you want to adopt certain characteristics and trait that they, you know, withhold. as their morality, but simultaneously, you're never gonna be them. So like, you have to like have some sort of like outer awareness, right? Like to be able to detach yourself from that situation is crucial to this entire process. Because if you attach onto that person that you admire, then like you will eventually identify as them, but it'll just be your name as the title and not their name. And that's where it's a sticky situation. So you have to really be aware of the conscious choices you make every single day, and that each choice you make has to be, goes back to intentionality. It has to be intentional and has to like curate this image of who you want to become, not who you think you want to become. There's a difference. You have to know who you want to become. And the only way you know who you want to become is by going through shit. You have to go through trials and tribulations. You have to go through challenges and overcome those challenges and just be that individual that never gives up. If you never give up, it's only a matter of time.
What do you say to people who really have never figured out who they are, and they see this person and they're replicating them and they're being successful by replicating them? They're getting followers, they're getting money, so they're getting successful, and by then they're getting good relationships, but they've become someone else. What would you say to them? Why should someone care that they're becoming someone else, consciously or subconsciously, even though they're getting success? Why should they prefer or go towards being themselves?
Because being yourself gives you the most peace, and that is what people strive for, whether they can articulate it or not. People at the end of the day want to be able to go to sleep at night and know that they were authentic. If you can't be authentic, authenticity, absolutely. That's the highest level of vibration. There's countless studies. You can research this for yourself. It's not enlightenment. It's not peace. It's authenticity. Authenticity, being like that person you are, like when you're with your closest friends, and being able to do that with everyone is what people strive for and what they really desire. So like I said, you form an identity based on other people's individuality and what you admire in them, but it's an extraction of specific traits that you now curate around your own individual life. If you admire someone's courage and their bravery, and you want to be more courageous, then you understand that you're not going to be courageous in the way that they're courageous. You're simply going to be courageous in whatever you can't be courageous in right now. And that's how you apply it and make it your own identity. Because now you're not becoming that person, because you're not doing the shit that they're doing. You're not, trying to, like, let's say, like, you can compare it to like somebody who goes to war, right? Or like a military like guy. If they're brave and you admire the bravery, you're not going to war physically. You might be going to war mentally. So that courage can be going inward and, going through specific healing processes like that you haven't wanted to look at because they're very traumatic. There's so many ways to like spin it. And I think that is the best way to go about it. And like, if you just extract specific characteristics of people that you admire from people, it will lead you to form your own identity that it will be individualized to you. It won't be someone else. But if you are seeing success from being somebody else, quote unquote, then just know that that's what you're supposed to be doing right now. There is no other way around it. You know what I mean? Like wherever you are is wherever you are. You're not over there. You're not over there. You're here. So if you're here and what you're doing now, that's what you're meant to be doing, because you have something to learn within that doing. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. So just having the ability to not have to put a mask on or several different masks on, depending on which room you go into.
Exactly. Authenticity.
How do you respond to those who question the effectiveness of faith-based approaches to fitness and personal growth?
I would say take a look in the mirror. Honestly, like take a hard look at the effectiveness of the current approach you're taking. If it's not in relation to faith-based approaches to fitness, personal growth, then are you still achieving what people who do have faith-based approaches to fitness and growth get? You know what I mean? Like, if what you're doing is working and it's not in relation to faith-based approaches, then I don't give a shit. Like, who would? Like, it's like, if you're achieving what you're supposed to be achieving, and good, and then Godspeed, good for you. But if you're still failing, or like you're ignorant and you're egotistical and questioning certain effectiveness of how other people are achieving their own success, whether if it's in relation to faith-based or not, then that's in and of itself you just being really, really naive and ignorant and arrogant to the fact that there are people that achieve success based on things that you might not agree with, but you're not even willing to entertain those things. So how can you even say that they're not for you if you're not even willing to entertain it as a potential in your life. I think that's very ignorant, and it will lead a lot of people down a path of self-destruction because you're potentially not looking at the thing that's going to save you.
Yeah, I think actually I was ignorant myself for a while. I got away from spirituality simply because of the state of the current world. You know, you see people going to church on Sunday and going to get drunk and party and do drugs and sleep with random chicks Saturday night. So for me, it was like, I don't want to be a part of that. But everyone is on their own spiritual journey. Everyone's on their own physical journey. Everyone's on their own mental health journey. Everyone's on their own life journey. So I think it is definitely worth taking a look in the mirror and asking yourself, is my current approach to life, to success, to fitness, to mental health, is it working? And if it's not, I think it's definitely something you should consider, is revisiting the idea of coming towards a faith-based approach to both fitness, personal growth, and life. It's powerful. We've gone through some heavy-hitting questions. I wrote up some more fun questions to end it off. So we can get into them now. If you could have any superpower related to fitness, what would it be, and how would you use it to inspire others?
I could have any power related to fitness. So this is an interesting question for sure. I would being able to make people realize that it's simply all about consistency. And like, there's like, I don't know how to necessarily articulate it. Like, I can do my very best, but
Like a Jedi mind trick.
yeah, like basically just being like the same way that like I perceive consistency, like as the stable to my success, is like, if I could just be like, teleport that to your mind, like
Right.
that is a superpower that I would love to have, because that automatically inspires you, because now you are based in a foundation that can actually be, you can now stack bricks on that without it falling over. You know what I mean? Like now you can inspire yourself. I don't have to look externally for all this inspiration, because now it's just a matter of taking the action every day, and that is up to you. It's not up to the person you look up to. It's up to you to take the action. But if you aren't even at the place where you see action as the step to take, then you're just going to constantly be seeking information from others, and never be developing your own data sets based on your own life experience. So it would absolutely be the ability to make people understand that consistency is what's going to allow you to succeed. And it all goes back to that. It's a matter of time. It's a matter of time.
I think that's a super selfless answer too, though. I mean, there's a ton of people that just be like, "Oh, I want to gain 100 pounds of muscle, and I'm gonna show off, and I'll tell people how to gain muscle. I'll sell a course." But instead, you're saying, if you had a superpower, your superpower would literally be to help people realize the importance of humility and patience, and just consistency and committing to your goals. I mean, it's selfless, to say the least. Second question I have for you is, if you were stranded on a desert island, which exercise routine would you recommend to stay fit?
If you're stranded on an island, I mean, you're only going to have access to yourself, right? You're not going to be able to, I mean, unless
You can cut down a tree or something, do some barbell curls.
if you're a craftsman, then yeah, you can do that. But like, honestly, just to keep it simple, like I would definitely say just the basic calisthenic movements, like find a tree branch to do some pull-ups on, do some different variations of push-ups, incline, decline, like however you could angle specific, wood planks you find, doesn't fucking matter. And then you could do leg raises on the tree branches. You could do body weight squats. You could do helicardio if you're on an island because there's water. You could do some swimming. Like, there's plenty of shit you can fucking do. So I would say definitely that.
Yeah. To wrap it up, what do you say to someone who wants to improve, who wants to get in shape, who wants to become the person that they know they can be, but they're procrastinating, they're putting it off, they think it's too complicated? What actionable advice would you give to them?
Start now. You have to understand that you're never going to get that aha moment that you're looking for. That moment comes in the process, comes once you began, and it's a privileged emotion to feel. It's a privileged insight to get. So like to believe right now without with procrastinating, not wanting to start, that you deserve that insight is ignorance, and it's a lack of understanding of how the world operates. The world is going to give you what you deserve. So once you begin your process and you dive into the unknown, then you will gain insight in the unknown that you didn't know before. It's very simple, like formula to follow, like when I articulate it with my words, but to actually do it, I understand it's very challenging because there are a lot of hula hoops and obstacles that people go through in their mind that they have to overcome, which I resonate with completely. But there's no difference between you and I and, me and the next person. Like, there's no difference. The only difference is that I chose to get up today. I chose to get up that day. I chose to go to the gym. I chose to do X thing to get me to somewhere. Even if I didn't necessarily understand where it was going to lead me, because even if someone told me, if you do this, it's going to get you there, I still might not have believed, even if they thought of themselves, because I have things in my mind that are contorting and fogging up what they're saying. It's not making sense. It's not computing in my head. And I think the best way to go about that is to simply understand that the more you procrastinate, the more you're delaying where you're going to become, what you're going to become in life, and who you are going to truly admire when you begin to enter your prime years of living. When you get to, as a man, I can't speak for women, when you get to the age of 30 to 40, like who you become along the journey of age 20 to 30 is pretty much like who you are. It's extremely challenging. Your mind no longer becomes malleable to actually become this different individual. That's why they always say to build a baseline physique at a young age, because it's very easy to maintain a physique, but it's very hard to gain a new physique. Like right now, up until the age of 25, around that age for most people, your brain is still very plastic. Like your neurology is not formed completely, and it's very malleable, and you can create new thoughts and ideas and new perspectives, new beliefs, new moralities around the world. So the more you procrastinate, the farther away you get from your goals, and also the more you're delaying the struggle, like the process. The willingness to endure suffering during the process is exactly who you have to become to achieve everything you're procrastinating right now. Everything you want to achieve is only going to get achieved if you understand that procrastination is just the devil telling you you're not good enough. You are good enough. Everybody is good enough. It's just, do you fundamentally understand that if you just let God guide you, you will achieve what you want to achieve, and those thoughts that you have in your head are not real? Just because I think to myself right now that I'm unworthy of achieving a physique I want to achieve does not mean that I'm actually unworthy in the physical realm to achieve that thing. Because if I took X steps to get to that body, if I ate the correct food, if I did the correct workout, I would get there. So that thought is a fallacy. It's not real. So your procrastination is not real. It's only real because you're not taking action. And you realize that as soon as you start taking action. So you have to take the leap. You got to take the leap of faith into the unknown, because the unknown is where you're going, and that's where all great things are achieved. The light at the end of the tunnel, you haven't even entered the tunnel, my friend. You're not going to see any sort of light. You have to go into the tunnel of darkness, which is very, very scary. I've done it. I understand. When you actually do it, there will be a light at the end of it that you will see. It might be very tiny to begin with, but it will grow the closer you get to it. And that's how light works. So just understand that, start now, and I promise you that you will gain the clarity that you want, because then you will be in a position, because you are now worthy of receiving that enlightened insight, because it's a privilege to have clarity on the light, quote unquote, that you have to enter the darkness for. It's yin and yang. You have to have a contrast of both. Both are very necessary for the other to exist. You have to have dark with the light. You have to have light with the dark. There's the sun and the moon. Everything is a polarity. Everything is contrasting each other. So the procrastination you feel right now is simply you listening to your mind about all of the previous notions about yourself, not allowing yourself to receive this new person you want to become. You have to just simply be humble enough to let go of the things that you were once going through. Forgive yourself for making mistakes. Forgive other people for doing you wrong. If you can be humble enough to do that, you can now let go of your ego, of that previous identity of whoever that individual was that you no longer want to be, in order to start taking the right steps to becoming this new individual that you are going to idolize. But it's going to take some time. And if you can recognize that, I promise you'll be successful.
That is an impossible performance to come after. So we'll end it there. Michael, before we go, where can people find you, whether they just want to get closer with you, follow you for your content, or maybe they even want to get coached and truly develop themselves as a man by you?
See Awaken on all platforms. Link is in my bio on every platform, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. If you want to get coached with me, I offer one-on-one coaching, and I teach people how to master their mind and body. That is what I devote my entire existence to. So that's where you can find me. MC Awaken on every platform.
MC Awaken. Okay. Well, with that, Michael, thank you for your time today. It's been truly motivating, truly powerful, and I think it'll be genuinely very powerful for the audience and really transformative overall for those who actually take these actionable steps and implement them in their own lives. So again, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Tony. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah.